there, my name is Diane, but you can just call me D. So for today's video, we're going to be doing a sort of wrap-up of new releases for 2022 that I've read so far. So right now, you can see them right here. I've read 4 of those. Most of them are thrillers, and then one is more so of a fantasy mystery. But yeah, let's get into it. This is the story of a blogger who has this true crime forum, and she gets to interview this woman who was accused of killing men in the 70s, late 70s, accused of sort of being a serial killer. But she was acquitted, and now the main character is getting to get an interview with her, I guess maybe to hear her side of the story. And they meet at the woman's estate, and it just seems like maybe the house is haunted. There's something going on, something wrong with this house, with this lady as well. What did I think of this book? I think I rated this book like 1 star. It's not as bad as some other books on this list, but it's just so boring. First of all, I thought we were going to get a bit more mixed media. I think that would have been cool to see a bit more of the forum that the main character has. But there's really none of that. We do have this dual timeline, and sometimes it can be well done, but this time around I preferred one timeline over the other, and I just wanted to get back into, I think, the present timeline which was, you know, what was more interesting to me. And honestly, it didn't feel like the plot was starting until over halfway through, so it was quite slow in the pacing at the beginning and for most of the book, really. And I didn't enjoy the main character's voice. I think in general, I think the writing style is something I didn't enjoy. So I've heard from some fans of Simon St. James that this writing style in this book is quite different from what they were used to from her other books. So I just don't know if I'd like to read another book from her. Just knowing that, maybe I would enjoy them better. But if I go from my feelings about this book, then I'm not planning on reading anymore. But yeah, the writing style is just not good. It's simply not a good writing. It's very meandering. It's a lot of jumping back and forth, jumping around. The dialogues are chaotic, and in general, the thoughts that we read of the main characters are very they're very inconsistent with what the thought process is. It just doesn't make sense. It's just so much jumping around, and it's just not good. And a lot of the dialogue didn't make sense. I think a lot of it was trying to make it fit the story, but I don't think that was very realistic. I mean, I know it's a book, it's a work of fiction, so it's not going to be realistic, but you want a little bit to feel like, damn, this could happen in real life somehow. And I say specifically to that because in the book there is an excerpt of a trial, so there's a trial transcript, and it is so badly written. I can tell that no research was done in that part of the book, just because of my knowledge of law. It's just not how a trial would be conducted, so it was very disappointing to read. And honestly, yeah, I guess that's what the book is. It's disappointing because it's so meh, it's so average and boring, and the twists are just so used, you know. It's just nothing interesting. It tells nothing new. It's okay if you take a story and that has been done before and you put a twist to it, but really this didn't happen in there. So it was super boring. But I have to say also the ending, in the ending, the main character just, her behavior is so inconsistent and out of nowhere, and it really feels misplaced, based on how the story went, that she would have those sort of feelings, that she would have this reaction. It didn't make sense to me. So anyway, I did not enjoy it. I don't know that I would ever recommend it. I mean, the cover is just so pretty, right? But it's what gets me, like those books that just look so pretty and I'm just expecting too much of them, and it's just not happening. I read The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager, and this book is really the book that is solidifying my feelings about this author. I think I enjoyed the two books that I read at the beginning, which were Lock Every Door and Home Before Dark. I really enjoyed them. I enjoyed the twists. There were some things that I overlooked just because I was enjoying the story. And then I read Survive the Night, which I enjoyed as much as I could, knowing how bad it was. So I didn't enjoy it, but it wasn't so much of a letdown because I had seen previous reviews, just, you know, saying how bad it was. But this one, because I had pre-ordered it and I really was trying not to hear anything before I read it myself, this was a huge letdown as well. It was really bad. It's definitely, this one gets a 1 star, and it's a bit different from the book of Cold Cases 1 star. This one is more so of, this was bad, like I would not recommend this book. Whereas the other one, it's more like, this was disappointing, I didn't enjoy it, maybe some other people might. This one, I'm having a hard time understanding how people can enjoy it. Not gonna lie. So basically the storyline is that there is this famous person who is struggling a little bit in life, and so she is put by her mother, she is forced really by her mother to take a break and go into their lake house to take some time off, away from the public eye. And when she's there, she thinks that she witnesses a potential murder. So what I didn't like everything about this book. I didn't like how she's a grown-ass adult and she gets forced to go into a location where very traumatic events happened to her. So I don't understand, why would you do that? How does that make sense? Anyway, and then she's also going through a lot, trying to process, or not process really, her past trauma. In this book, the main character is an alcoholic who is really struggling, and she's left alone, and it's just like, how does that make sense to people that it's the best way for the main character to deal with her issues? Like, what? Dumb. There's that. So obviously we've got the unreliable main character, which honestly is annoying because it's been done so much. I feel like you didn't need that factor in to make the storyline. Like, I didn't feel like she was unreliable, to be honest. I felt like she was annoying, felt like she was making poor decisions, but that's Riley Sager's main characters. That's what they do. They make bad decisions, they made unrealistic decisions, but whatever. I thought this book also was very slow, very boring. Like, I don't know why people are saying this has a lot of action. This has no actions. I guessed some of the twists like pretty early on, which was fine, but there was other twists that I didn't see coming because I didn't know that this was that type of book. And if you know me, you know what I'm talking about. But basically, this book is doing what I really dislike in books. So that's personal preference. I know that a lot of people loved that kind of twist. So that's really up to you. But for me personally, this is the type of twist I hate. I hate not knowing into it, going into it. And I feel like the story was not set up in a way that you could understand where the twist is coming from. Not that you could necessarily guess it, but that you could understand it. We get a very small mention of a clue somewhere, but that's it. And I think this honestly comes to bad plot, poorly executed, and I'm wondering if it's because Riley Sager has been so in lately that, you know, he's been pushed to write so many books, and the quality of the storyline just gets lower and lower and as it goes, because that's how it feels, to be honest. So that was really bad. I didn't like the second twist either. I thought that was just so ridiculous. There were plot holes in there as well. And in general, the main character was still insufferable, and I'm tired of reading the same type of characters from this author, and it just seems like this is the only type of characters he knows how to write. So I'm done with this author. I've seen what is his next book coming, or potentially his next story, and it doesn't even interest me. So I'm definitely not gonna pick it up, and I will spoil myself for it just so I can laugh about how ridiculous the twists are. I would definitely recommend it to no one. It was really bad. Something else that this author does, which this book did for a little bit, but then the thing was revealed early on enough for me to be happy about it. It's basically when a main character that you're reading the perspective of is hiding something from the reader. I just don't get it. Like, this one is in the first person. It shouldn't be hiding that much to me, okay? So I was glad that some of it was revealed and I could guess, you know, a bit more of the story from that. So that was fine for me. This one is also written in the first person, and it's hiding a huge part of the plot. And it makes zero sense for me to be in the head of the main character and not know a little bit of that plot twist. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like I should know, I should get more clues about it. It just, this was so dumb. Oh my god, I hated it. The next book was Book of Night by Holly Black. And this is a book that I've seen that a lot of people are disliking, which is interesting to me because some people are loving this book, which I don't get. But why are you disliking this so much? So I enjoyed it. I don't think this is a masterpiece, but also it did something I hated, though, I have to say. Is I totally thought this was a standalone, but it's a duology. And I don't think it was sold as a duology at first. So that's always disappointing when that happens, but whatever. But other than that, like, I enjoyed the book for what it was. I don't think it was spectacular, but I don't think it was horrible either. Of course, if I start to analyze every little things, I can understand some of the critics. Basically, this is the story of Charlie, who... This is how it's hard to explain what this book is about. There is some shadow magic in there, but basically it's kind of our contemporary world mixed with magic, and magic has been discovered where your shadow can quicken and become magical. I don't know, it's just so difficult to explain. Let's see. But the main character has been a con artist, I guess, her whole childhood / life, and then she got out of it and she's just working at a bar now, but unfortunately trouble finds her again, where she needs to find this Book of Night in order to saves people she loves and potentially the world. I honestly liked it. I liked the writing. Sure, maybe the main character is a little bit of a I'm so cool kind of girl, but I enjoyed it. It has kind of a romance plot to it, so I have to. I mean, it is Holly Black, so I would hope for a little bit of romance. But just so you know, getting into it, it's definitely not just fantasy. There is romance weaved into it, even though we don't spend enough time on this. I feel like it's a big part of the plot, but we don't spend enough time with the romantic. That was one thing that I thought could have been done a bit better. There's also a dual timeline in there where I didn't care too much about the past. I just wanted to see what was going to happen in the present. What else? The world. Listen, the world building is not good, okay? It's a lot of info dumping, it's a lot of badly repeated information. So just know going into this that, you know, it's not the most fleshed out world, but you figure it out, and if you just like, you know, go along with the flow, then you kind of get the idea of what is happening, sort of. So I don't know if I'm doing a good job at selling it, but I know a lot of people were extremely disappointed with this book. So I don't want to put too much, you know, expectations on this. However, I don't really see what's the issue. It's not the worst book. Those are really bad. This isn't that bad, in my opinion. But I mean, I guess this is just my type of taste. I thought it was reading fast. I mean, it's a small book. It's only about 300 pages. Yes, maybe the, you know, part of the book is quite slow setting everything up. I would expect this to be a bit slower at the beginning because it is a fantasy world and you have to set up a little bit of the magic system, even though it's not really well set up. But those things, no, you don't need to set up that much, okay? The ending leaves you on a cliffhanger, so if you like this, then that's good for you. If you don't like this, then maybe wait until the second book is out to read it. Have you read this book? You know, what did you think about it? And I don't think that what is being said is necessarily inaccurate. It's just that it didn't bother me as much as it seemed to have bothered other people. So this is definitely adult though, but it is actually, I feel like it's kind of in between. Where the writing is adult, there's some gore, there's some, you know, adult themes, but I don't think Holly Black took the plot far enough to where it felt like the stakes were really high. I wish the plot would have ended a little bit more strongly, although I did enjoy the cliffhanger. But just so you know, it is trying, you know, it is being a bit in that middle ground where it's not YA, but it's not quite adult yet. So I feel like this author is still trying to find her footing in that age category. I think this is her first adult book actually. So if you like sort of fantasy with a romantic aspect to it, even though the romance is really not the main focus, like it's hard to explain. It's basically the romance is a big part of the plot, but we don't spend time on the romance until like the end or the beginning or the end, you know, kind of deal. So if you like that, then pick this up. If you don't really like a world building that is very fuzzy around the ages, where you really don't understand much of it and how this works exactly and does that actually make sense, then that's probably not for you. It was probably more so like a 3.75, 4 stars. Like, it was good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time, and that's how I would rate it. The last one is my most recent read, and it's The Woman in the Library by Sula Ridge Gentle. And oh boy, this was upsettingly bad. So I bought this book thinking that the premise was going to be there are 4 strangers in the library, a murder happens in another room, and the 4 strangers are told to stay put in this library. I was told that it was going to be a locked room mystery, and one of those strangers is potentially if not the murderer. But that's not what I got at all. This is a book within a book. So the main character is writing this story of four strangers that meet in the library. A murder happens and they end up trying to figure out what's going on. However, this is not a locked room, okay? They don't stay in the library. They meet there a few times. They don't even know a murder has happened until later on that day. They only heard a scream. And I don't know why you would go back and talk to those people that you don't know to try to figure out what happened. Like, so I hated that. I hated that I was lied to in the synopsis because that's not what I got. Also, the writing is really bad. It's the worst out of all the books I've read. It's a lot of metaphors or expressions. It's overly written. It's actually painful to read. It's just, oh my gosh, can you just freaking say what you want to say? You don't have to go through freaking 1,000 words and give me like similes and whatever to tell me how I'm supposed to visualize it. It's just too much for me. And also the main character in this is the person who's writing that novel is very bland. It's like, honestly, I know her name. I know that she's a woman, but she's other than that, she's so faceless to me. There's absolutely no attachment or no connection with this main character. And I don't know if it's because it's written, that way, where you only read the draft of the story that she's writing, so you don't really get to see her. But it's the same thing with the main character that she's writing about. So bland. They could be anyone. It doesn't even matter. Also, the names that are chosen in the story are interesting. It's an interesting choice. I just don't know. On top of the writing being just, and the characters being, they are so flat. They have nothing interesting to say, and the dialogues are just bad, cheesy. Oh my god, this writing is just not for me. It's just not for me. But the worst part, honestly, is that at the end of each chapters, you get a letter. The author of the draft receive those letters from a friend who is also a writer, but this friend is based in the US and she's based in Australia. And this friend is basically telling her, giving her praises on her writing because he receives the chapters. And at the end of each of those chapters, he just says, oh, I really love this about the chapter. And like, oh, how clever, you put this in there. Is that what you meant to do? And it's like, is this an analysis of each chapter? Am I not supposed to be guessing this on my own? It just felt so forced. Also, this guy is letting the author know, hey, by the way, like, this would not be a word that Americans would use, so I would just advise you to use this one. Also, if you are writing about this place, I can go and research a little bit about this place and then let you know. And I'm just like, you're so obnoxious. Let her write her fucking book. Like, just stop talking. I don't know if it was meant on purpose. I'm guessing a little bit, but this guy is just so obnoxious and condescending in the way that he's talking about her story and the chapters that he's getting. What is this? Honestly, don't think this is a good way to write a book, because those kind of letters at the end of each chapters, okay, each take you out of the story that is being written. So I understand what the author of the book was trying to do, and I think there is some cleverness to the plot. I just think that it really did not work for me. I don't think it's gonna work for a lot of people. Honestly, I hated this. Like, the other ones, I well, this one I enjoy, so it doesn't count. But the other ones I disliked, and I hated for the plot and the main characters and all that. But this one I just hated the book in general. It was not what I wanted. It was not what I was promised that I was gonna get. It was badly written. It was obnoxious, condescending. It was just, what was this? Like, what was this doing to the reader? The characters felt non-existent. That didn't feel real. The two plots that are going on are not interesting. Even the whodunit, like inside, like story inside, is not even interesting. It's boring, and those names, why? Basically, those are all the 4 new releases of 2022 that I've read. And there's another one that I'm currently reading. This is These Fleeting Shadows by Kate Alice Marshall. So far, I am about 67 pages in. I'm enjoying it. It is intriguing. I don't think it's gonna be a 5 stars, but hopefully it could be between a 3.5, maybe a 4 stars. I think it has potential. I'm just intrigued where this is going, so I'm very hopeful about this. But I don't know if I should be, because clearly my track record is not the greatest. So what did this taught me? This taught me that even though I think probably thrillers and mysteries are my favorite genres, more often than not, they don't end up panning out for me. They don't end up being even a 4 stars for me. Will I continue reading those kind of books? Yes, I will. But I will try to go into those kind of thrillers with lower expectations, especially the ones that are very mainstream. I just feel like they tend to always disappoint me for some reason. I don't know if it's because I'm expecting a lot because they're mainstream. I don't know. But I also would want to maybe dive into some thrillers and mysteries that are maybe a little bit less known, and see if there is a sort of subgenre in that category that I could be enjoying a bit more. So I don't know, we'll see. But have you read any of those books? Have you loved them? If you've loved them, I'm so happy for you. Or have you hated them? And if you've hated them, please let me know in the comments. But also, if you've loved them, like, definitely share your perspective, because I can see for a lot of people why some of the books, they would have liked some of those books, but unfortunately they didn't work out for me. Let's chat in the comments down below about your new releases that you've read this year. If you read any, have you enjoyed them? Were they anticipated for you? I really hope we can discuss about those books. I think it's so much fun to have different type of perspectives. That's why I love watching live shows about one specific books, and I've done that for a few of those, just because I think it's so much fun to see people loving a book that you hated. It's like it's nice to understand another perspective, and it's like, well, okay, that worked for you, it didn't work for me, but now I'm understanding your taste a little bit better, and when you recommend a book, I can understand what you mean a little bit better. Same thing as for me, I'm assuming, when you see my reaction to those books, then you understand a little bit more of my taste, or I think that makes sense, right? Okay. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.